This has to be the right way.
So the Unreal Engine 5 tech demo was released yesterday when they introduced Nanite Virtualized Micropolygon Geometry, which sounds very complex, but does look stunning, and Lumen, the fully dynamic global illumination solution, natively in the engine. It was running on a PlayStation 5, but that shouldn't mean there's nothing in store for PC gamers from that tech demo. I don't know what your initial impressions are of the tech demo, Alan.
I'm blown away by it. A little bit like Tom Senior said in his piece. Technically, it's incredible, absolutely beautiful. But there are questions about what this means for gameplay. And the fact that this very much looks like a slightly higher fidelity Tomb Raider. I can understand where Tom's coming from, but back to the actual tech, it's gorgeous. There's so much about this that blows my mind, including the scene where it goes to, here's how many polygons we're rendering right now. That is...
Yeah, it is unbelievable.
Yeah. They make a big point, it looks like noise, and it does, because the polygons, I mean, they're smaller than, well, they're pixel-sized, a lot of them, so that alone is just incredible to see. Yes.
I think a lot of what they've kind of introduced is definitely to kind of streamline how developers can interact with an engine and bring in certain things, like they're talking about they can get ZBrush sculpts and photogrammetry scans and just chuck them straight at the engine itself and let it do all the hard work of optimizing it and making sure that that's scalable.
Just bouncing back to it a second, is the idea that everything that's exciting about this, in a way, is not to do with what we'll experience as gamers. It's the fact that it's going to make development easier. And that's the takeaway, is that art guys are not having to do various levels of detail of their models, of the textures, any of that. That all goes. The engine takes care of that for you. And that's the exciting bit, that these incredibly complex scenes are going to be possible without all the overheads that usually go with that.
Yeah, it's also that flexibility. I mean, like the Lumen tech, they're talking about how, instead of pre-baking and lighting in, which is what you normally have to do, which means you're kind of stuck with certain things that are static, that they're figuring out a way which means that you can, inside the Unreal editor, when you're using the engine, you can shift the light, and then that's the exact same way that it'll run on console and also on PC. There's quite a lot of flexibility that can be added into games. So whether or not you're putting in these, the level of polygons that are in there, like individually, these techniques are going to have a potential, like, really big impact on just how games are at least made. Not saying everything's going to look exactly like this tech demo. I don't think anyone really expects that's what the first wave of games are going to look like, but it's definitely a promising look of what an engine can do to kind of help developers build like more interactive and more dynamic worlds.
I think that's a theme in the industry at the moment as a whole as well. It's something we're getting out of NVIDIA as well, with when they were talking about when they introduced mesh shaders as well. The angle's very much about making it easier for game devs. It's not about, I mean, the fidelity of games these days is actually very good, but it's the time needed to make them. This tech demo shows that they are focusing on making it easier for everyone to actually produce them in the first place. I think that's the takeaway. So I've just I've just got to the bit where she starts shining the light, the dynamic lighting around, and all the insects are scurrying away from it, and that's incredible. It's absolutely beautiful to see. The models, the 33 million polygon warrior model. It's so impressive to go from the first model on its own in the hallway. She's got the little light in her hand, and she goes into the room where there's 500 of these. So 533 million polygon models rendered smoothly in real time.
So the one other thing that's potentially coming out of this is they're talking a lot about SSDs as almost a metric of performance now, which is something you've never really seen in games so far, where everyone, PC gaming, you want an SSD in your machine, you get so much faster boots, you get so much faster load times, you're not waiting around, but doesn't affect the actual game performance. But that is something that Epic are very much kind of touting with this is, oh no, the PS5's got this god tier system of I/O and cache, and it bring all this in with its custom flash controller, and that's going to make a real difference. And the PC's all right, it'll be fine. And I think it's one of the big questions that this kind of brings up is, will that really have a huge impact? Is that going to change how graphics cards are made with memory and how they approach bandwidth? Or is this just kind of the rhetoric that you kind of expect, and actually like gaming PCs will be fine when this comes around? Or if you're still gaming on a hard drive, that doesn't mean you're going to have just totally not be able to play a game that's using any of this new technology.
I think that's the thing as well, is that obviously on PCs we've got people with hard drives, we've got people with SSDs, and then we've got NVMe SSDs, PCI Express 4. We've got the full range. So does this mean? I mean, is it going to be if we start seeing games that are as rich, have 8K textures, 16K textures maybe, you have a lot of data. Is the game going to go, you need a Gen 4 PCI Express SSD?
Yeah, we're going to see that as a requirement that is a speed requirement, not an SSD, not a capacity requirement anymore. Which seems very foreign. I don't think that seems like an idea or a concept that will happen, but maybe that's me being naive, and that comment will get old very quickly.
I think you need to be you need to edge your bets a little bit and get a good SSD. I think that's what you've got to get out of this. Is like, you want something fast. We're going to get better SSDs out of this, I think that's the exciting thing in a way, is that from consoles of all things, the requirement for PCs from a storage perspective may increase, which is, as you say, it may not, but there's a chance it will, and that's pretty incredible.
There's this kind of strange thing that's happening right now where usually the freedom of a PC, having all these different components, gave you quite a lot of freedom with how you played the games and the performance you could get. But at the moment, the ASIC coming about, and the consoles are using ASICs and like application-specific integrated circuits to really push like specific things that they need accelerated in a certain way that works perfectly for games, that PCs tend to just go brute force. We've got power. Whatever you want doing, we'll just chuck it at a really good graphics card. You'll chuck it at a really good CPU. So I do wonder how much of this stuff that's coming in on consoles that's being introduced that accelerates certain tasks and certain things are actually going to be things that a PC with a solid CPU can just kind of just chuck off and go like, oh yeah, all right, it uses a little bit more of my processing power, but actually I'm going to be fine. So I wonder how much of this will affect PC gaming as a whole, but it's definitely an interesting thing that could potentially change the way that a lot of the components that we've got in our PCs are built or like manufactured.
Yeah, that's a big thing that Sony made a big thing about it in the PS5 talk, and Xbox as well, is that they have limited power envelopes to actually work in. In their case, they've got a CPU and a GPU in the same kind of system on a chip, so they've got to allow for that. Whereas PC, you just go, we're getting
we've got a 250 watt CPU just came out.
Yeah,
so
exactly. So it's just like
the power envelope isn't so restricted.
We don't need that, and we've got more cores. We've got more, far more powerful graphics cards. So yeah, I think you're right. We're going to have. There are problems that they're solving on consoles that are not problems on PCs. I think you're absolutely right, and that therefore, in a way, it's a problem for Epic to solve, so that it just works on the PC because the power's there. It's just maybe in slightly different places, and maybe that is what's going to happen with storage as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the freedom that we're chatting about with the Unreal Engine. It's platform agnostic. It doesn't care whether you're on a PlayStation, whether you're on an Xbox Series X or on a PC. And so, like you say, it is up to Epic to get those things working across. And I'm sure they will, and I'm sure they'll work perfectly well across anyone that sees fit to put that into a game.
Yeah. Agree.
And we'll also see a huge range and huge scalability, I think. And scalability is definitely something that seems to be discussed a lot with the new consoles, but also it's a huge factor in PC. I can't see that going away, so I think a lot of these fears of like, oh, you need this great bandwidth, you need this, this top SSD. it's probably not going to be such a cut and dried, oh no, if you've got a hard drive, you can't play this game.
That would be an unfortunate move for any game developer to move.
Yes.
Like, all those people that have hard drives, yeah, you can't play this.